Detail, attain. Detail, parade, rest. Detail, attend. Hut. Detail, present, arc. detail, order, arms. Detail, parade, rest.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for your observance of a fantastic entrance of the Honor Guards, from the Fire and Police, the VFW, and the Elks. It makes it really close to heart when something like this moves even me. Thank you. You may be seated. I didn't have it written down, so I didn't know what to say. I'll start with two things. If there's anybody standing in the back that would like to sit, we have 4 or 5 more seats up front and some in the middle of the audience. And I would ask you all, please, silence your phones. Thank you. Good morning again. My name is Robert Fowler. I'm on the Board of Trustees for the 9/11 Committee. This is the 17th time we've met. Before the memorial was built and after. So we've seen a lot of the same faces, and it's nice to see new faces. Thank you for that. Approximately 17 years ago, Tewksbury resident Fred Simon began a crusade to erect a lasting memorial honoring the victims of September 11th. Terrorist attacks in New York, Washington, D.C., and Shanksville, Pennsylvania. Armed with the ideas, enthusiasm, and no money, Fred began his campaign. He turned to an old friend, John Ryan, Assistant Superintendent of Schools, and asked John if he would join him. John immediately accepted, and the campaign was on. Fred and John knew that their campaign would not be successful unless they broadened the outreach to include individuals who enjoyed community support and strong ties to the business sector. A call went out to James Carter and Richie Cuco to ask them to join the team in the leadership capacity. Both Jim and Dick gladly accepted the campaign to erect a permanent memorial, and Tewksbury was in full swing. This dedicated group of individuals were bonded together by a common goal: to erect a memorial that will forever honor those who fell on September 11th, 2001, and proudly join millions of Americans in thousands of communities across the nation in proclaiming that we will never forget. Once the leadership team was in place, it was time to finalize the memorial site, engage an architectural service, design the appropriate memorial, plan a groundbreaking ceremony to launch our drive to raise the necessary funds to construct a memorial, and to send out a call to Tewksbury residents to join the 9/11 Memorial Committee. Within weeks, the Tewksbury Library of Trustees granted the request of leadership from the leadership team to construct a memorial on library grounds. That since has been changed. That area on the other side of the wall is all in the name of the 9/11 Committee. Galvin and Sullivan architectural firm donated their service to design the memorial. A groundbreaking ceremony was planned for September 11, 2004, and many Tewksbury residents answered the call for volunteers and joined the 9/11 Memorial Committee. On September 11, 2004, approximately 300 people attended a groundbreaking ceremony at the memorial site on the grounds of the Tewksbury Public Library. This was truly remarkable since the Memorial Committee enjoyed little time to plan the ceremony, relied entirely on donations from a handful of individuals and businesses to support the groundbreaking. It did not have time or funds to print and mail invitations. At the groundbreaking ceremony on September 11, 2004, the word went out loud and clear that the 9/11 Memorial will be back in 1 year, September 11, 2005, and a formal dedication of the memorial will be held on that day at 9 a.m. The task of the 9/11 Memorial Committee was daunting at less: to raise approximately $300,000 in 1 year, construct the memorial, plan the dedication, and provide for perpetual care of the memorial. With the help of a large group of volunteers, a tremendously receptive citizenry, both in Tewksbury and beyond, the Tewksbury 11 Memorial was successful in their goal. September 11, 2005 was the formal dedication, as I said, of the Tewksbury 9/11 Memorial. The memorial has been designed to be a replica of the library portico. Building materials were selected because of the longevity, include granite, steel, and slate, with a circular brick pathway, which bearing the name and hometown of 2,973 citizens who fell on September 11, 2001. Special bronze plaques were mounted inside the memorial to honor the Tewksbury two fallen sons, Peter Gay and Peter Hashem, who were aboard American Flight 11. Also honored in a very special way are our first responders, fire and police personnel, EMTs, and all those who assisted in the recovery effort. We are proud of each and every one of them and millions of freedom-loving people around the world, and are proudly proclaiming we will never forget. Two other plaques have been added to the portico of the memorial. As you look above, you will see a steel beam. The 124-pound hanging steel beam was once part of the World Trade Center in New York City, tragically reduced to rubble with the terrorist attack of September 11, 2001. Tewksbury, Mass. Is one of the many communities in the United States and in several foreign countries that receive steel to incorporate in their memorial. We are honored to display this poignant remembrance of loss and sadness. Like steel, the beam represents our strength, courage, and struggle to keep freedom alive. Behind the gentleman on my right is a marker to tell the story of people who will succumb to the effects of 9/11 in the future, in the past, in the future. As you look around the memorial, you'll find the names of victims enshrined in brick pavers. Their names are memorialized alphabetically by location and tragic final journey. Within the field of names, the marker with stars on it to depict however many people you might want to say. When we first put it in, they probably depicted 10 people, so maybe 100 people. There have been thousands that have died from the effects of 9/11. So I guess each star is worth over 100 people. Again, I'll read the marking. This marker is dedicated to the multitude of people, past, present, and future, that have or will succumb from the effects of 9/11. You'll hear this a lot. We will never forget. The effects of 9/11 have not ended. To date, more people have died from exposure at ground zero than at the attacks, or in the attacks. Think of that. Almost 3,000 people died from the attacks, and we're talking 10 times that have died from the effects of working at ground zero. I'm sure you've heard this before. Where were you on 9/11? Take a second to reflect where you were. Some of you weren't born. Some of you were so young you're not sure what was going on when you saw it on TV. September 11th is etched in our hearts' minds forever. We know where we were and what we were doing and how the world stopped. This memorial was created not for us, but for the future generations that need to know the history of 9/11. On March 11, 2013, we responded to the curator of the 9/11 Tribute Center in New York City, thanking them with the news that we were chosen. Tewksbury's memorial was chosen as one of the 8 memorials from around the world to be included in their exhibit. Oh, what's that? Oh, thank you, thank you. Any help is, thank. It is my pleasure to introduce Larissa Gay, daughter of Peter Gay, who was on one of our plaques. Peter Gay was a passenger on American Airlines Flight 11. Larissa.
I appreciate it. I was gonna just walk around with it. Why just stay stationary? Good morning, everyone. As always, it's lovely to see you all here today. Can everyone hear me okay? Okay. I will talk as loud as I can, I promise. Don't want to scream into here. That won't be fun. What a year and a half it's been for all of us. I tend to forget that we weren't here last year. It was so strange not being able to gather together to commemorate this day. Probably truly one of the hardest anniversaries because it made me realize how much I appreciate being here each day, each year, seeing all of you. It felt weird being home and not around you all, and definitely made me appreciate these services just a little bit more. So with that being said, I truly appreciate seeing you each and every year, especially this year. And what a beautiful morning, as always, it is. 20 years, I cannot believe it. Some days it truly feels like yesterday. The hardest part of time passing is the struggle to hold on to the memories that with each year seem to fade just a little bit more. I struggle to remember the sound of my dad's voice, his laugh, his mannerisms. I cherish the way others speak of him to this day, because with each story I hear, it's like someone hit a refresh on those memories, and they don't seem so far anymore. But time is a true thief. 2 decades without him. It's insane to think about. Some days I feel like his presence is forever surrounding me. Some days not so much. Those days are the days I miss him the most. But I know his guiding light is always with me and is helping me to stay sane through these incredibly challenging times. However, it will never change the fact that missing him is just as hard as it was day one. We miss him so incredibly much each and every day. On a lighter note, last year, while I was recording my speech for our virtual commemoration, I had just found out some news in weeks prior that would change my world forever. The emotions I was feeling were amplified, to say the least, while recording my speech. But it was a different type of feeling. I had found out I was pregnant. Furthermore, in October, we found out our little miracle was a boy. And I realized my dad had gifted me with a little boy. I don't know where he went. I think he went to the car. Oh, he's right there. This is Rain Peter. My dad would have been the most amazing grandfather. You don't have to stay. He's getting kind of mad. He had a long car ride. Very hungry 4-month-old here. We can say hi later. You can go feed him. Thank you. Don't want angry babies. My dad would have been the most amazing grandfather, and it saddens me that Rain won't be able to experience that. But he for sure has the best guardian angel that there could be. This year, while it's the 20th anniversary, I stand before you a whole new role. As a mother, and publicly, let's see what I had said on the backside here, announcing that Mr. Gay is indeed a grandfather now. Being a mom is something that I was absolutely terrified of, not gonna lie. But now I realize how much of a blessing it is and how children just light up your world. Even on my darkest day of the year, Rain has given me 1,000 reasons to smile. I can only hope I show as much love and compassion to him as my father did to me. I am so extremely grateful for my little family, for Rain, and for Bob, who has not only been the best father to our little man, but also the most caring and helpful, loving partner that I could ever hope for. The way he is with Rain, I was hoping he'd be next to me, but babies, you can't predict them. The way he is with Rain reminds me a lot of how my dad is with me. What I'm trying to say is, during this whole new journey of parenthood, I have seen my dad's presence now more than ever. I felt it in the strength during my labor, the perseverance during the hard times, and the love that we all share. I've seen him in Rain, his smile, his laugh. My dad is there. He lives through me, and now even more so through our little boy. We cry happy tears thinking of all this because, man, in a world so crazy, the brightest lights are really the tiniest humans that we get to call ours. Again, I want to thank you all for coming out, for this year, for last year, for 2 years from now, for 3 years from now, and for all the years in the past. I want to remind you all to hold your loved ones so, so close. You never know what tomorrow brings. We all live such precious lives and should be grateful for each and every second we have with one another. See if I can make it through this last one. A note to my dad in closing. Thank you for your love. Thank you for sending me such a healthy blessing, a piece of you. We miss you so much, but it's my job now to make sure you live on through me and in turn your grandson. He will know just how much his grandpa loves him. Even though you're not physically here with him, I feel you in every moment we share. It's something truly so indescribable. We miss you so much, and we love you so much. Once again, family and friends, let us never forget this day, what it meant for our personal lives, what it meant for our country, and what it continues to mean as part of our history. Keeping the memory alive of those taken from us 20 years ago, keep their memory alive forever. Rain and I would like to thank you all one last time. We hope everyone has a healthy and happy rest of the year, and let us never forget September 11th. Thank you.
Thank you, Larissa. I think I lost my place in my notes. I did. It blew over. I find it very easy to introduce the next two men on the program. I have known both of these men from when they were appointed to their departments as privates and up to the rank they now have as chief of their departments. Fire Chief Joseph Kearns and Police Chief Ryan Columbus. It's a pleasure to introduce you again, and if you gentlemen would step forward, I have...
Hi, everyone. Good morning. I'll just hold it. I feel honored to be here today as a police officer, but sad when I think about the lives that were lost on 9/11. Not only the lives that were lost, but how they were lost. The tragedy of people traveling on a plane, being hijacked, and having their plane flown into the towers. The people who were at work when the towers were hit, the emergency workers who rushed in to save lives, not knowing our country was under attack. For those of us who are old enough to remember, we all remember where we were and how we felt. The confusion, the fear, the anger, and the sadness that overwhelmed the country. Today we remember those we lost, the attack on the country, and what it meant during that time to be an American. The days, weeks, and months following the attack were the most patriotic days of my life. There were no sides. We were all Americans. There were flags everywhere, like you see here today. In fact, you couldn't buy a flag because they were sold out everywhere. To this day, I have never seen so much patriotism as we rallied as a country and came together as one. As we reflect and remember, it's important to honor those who have fallen on 9/11 and since that date defending our country. We are all Americans, and we need to honor them by coming together. I want to thank the members of the police and fire departments who always answer the call for service for this community. I also want to thank the community for the continued support. We cannot do what we do without you. Thank you.
I guess I should have won that toss. Excellent speech, Ryan. One of the things he hit on, I'll actually go backwards from where I was going to start, is the patriotism. You know, this country came together, didn't matter what side you were on, and we need to get back to that point again. You know, when those attacks happened and we lost all those civilians, we came together as a country. And year after year, when I come here and I see this, it's impressive what Tewksbury does. You know, and Tewksbury as a community always steps up. And the term gets used, I think, sometimes too much, but Tewksbury never forgets what happened. Almost 3,000 civilians passed away. There was over 400 first responders that lost their lives that day. And there's 343 firefighters. So I'm going to take the opportunity to speak on the perspective of, as a firefighter, when we lost 343 of our firefighters. When I was preparing to speak, I looked at a plaque right outside my office that listed the names of all our members that went down to Ground Zero in the days following 9/11. There's only 11 of us that are still working. But when you look over there right now, you see probably 3/4 of our department here because they understand the importance of this day. And when you look at the police department and you look at their members, a lot of their members weren't here when 9/11 happened. But they understand the importance of remembering everyone that lost their lives that day. As Captain Fowler said, since that's happened, there's been over 300 firefighters that have lost their lives due to repercussions from what happened down at 9/11. So In closing, again, Tewksbury is a great community. We can't thank you enough as a fire department. Like Chief Columbus said, the police and fire departments that you have in this town are excellent departments. They're top notch. And I just finally like to thank the 9/11 committee for giving us a chance to speak today. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Chiefs, it was a pleasure to know you, and a pleasure to see you lead your people at your respective departments. Men, women, old and new. Some of us are pretty old. At this time, we jumped around on the program. I did. We would like to have Amazing Grace heard as from Vanessa Howe, Tewksbury Memorial High School senior.
You're not doing Amazing Grace, you're going God Bless America.
Oh, I'm sorry. I went too far. From the swinging seniors, we are going to have God Bless America. Thank you. As we sit here and listen to the people that are talking, we have to reflect on what actually happened that day. On that day, there were four airliners from different airports, two from Logan, that created a terror and a death for dozens and dozens of people. As we reflect on this 20th anniversary, we would like to remember the 93 Massachusetts residents who died as a result of the events of 2011-01. I am going to read to you the series of events that took place 20 years ago today. At 8:46 a.m., American Airlines Flight 11 crashes into the World Trade Center North Tower. 55 Massachusetts residents died that day, including 2 people from the town of Tewksbury. At 9:03 a.m., United Airlines Flight 175 crashes into the World Trade Center South Tower. 26 Massachusetts residents. 9:37 a.m., American Airlines Flight 77 crashes into the Pentagon. 1 Massachusetts resident. At 9:59, what happened that moment was very symbolic, because everybody always looked at the towers and thought of them as indestructible. At 9:59, the South Tower collapsed. At 10:06 a.m., United States Flight 93 crashes into a field at Shanksville, Pennsylvania. No Massachusetts residents. The people on that airplane saved thousands of lives on the ground by taking over from the terrorist the ability to lead that plane to a safe area, not for them, but for everyone else. I remember the slogan, and I forgot it. Excuse me. Someone remember it? I tricked you. That's good. Let's roll. That's what was said over the telephones that the relatives heard from their loved ones on the plane. Let's roll. At 10:28, the North Tower collapsed. World Trade Center had 11 Massachusetts residents. In approximately 102 minutes, 2,973 people from around the world were killed in this act of terrorism. Since 9/11, there have been thousands of first responders that responded to the pile, the World Trade Center site, first as a rescue mission, then as a recovery process. The sad thing is, a lot of these people who went to do those jobs have died from the illnesses contracted from this heroic effort. At this time, I'd like the names of the recipients, of the residents that died that evening, that morning. And after each group, you'll hear the bells ringing. As we reflect on this 20th anniversary, we would like to remember the Mass residents who died as a result of that. And I would ask, gentlemen, ladies, if you would come up with your list.
Anna Williams Allison, Barbara Aristegi, Myra Aronson, Garnett Bailey, Christine Barbudo, David Bernard, Mark Bavis, Graham Andrew Berkeley, Kelly Ann Booms, John Brett Cahill, Christopher Kostanajan, Nellie Ann Heffernan Casey, Jeffrey Coombs, John Corcoran, Tara Creamer.
Patrick Caravan, Captain Gerald Francis DeCanto, David DeMeglio, Donald Americo DeTulio, Paige Farley Hackle, Alexander M. Filipov, Paul Friedman, Carlton D.B. Fife, Peter Gay, Linda George, Lynn Catherine Goodchild, Peter Morgan Goodrich, Lisa Fenn Gordonstein, Douglas A. Gowell, and the Reverend Francis E. Grogan.
Maylee Rachel Hale, Christine Lee Hansen, Peter Hansen, Sue Kim Hansen, Eric Samadekan Hartono, Peter Paul Hashem, James E. Hayden, Robert Hayes, Edward Hennessy, Todd Russell Hill, Cora Hidalgo Holland, Herbert W. Homer, Nicholas Humber, Robert Adrian Jalbert, John Charles Jenkins.
Charles Edward Jones, Robin Kaplan, Ralph Francis Kershaw, Brian Kinney, Judy Frankie LaRock, Natalie Janice Lasden, Daniel C. Lewin, Marianne McFarlane, Susan McKay, Karen A. Martin, Joseph Matai, Deborah Medwig, Christopher D. Mello, Craig James Miller, Carlos Alberto Montoya.
Laura Lee Morbiato, Christopher Morrison, Michael McGinty, Mildred Rose Neerman, Kathleen Nicosia, John Oganowski, Betty Ann Ong, Jane Orth, Nitlin Packardar, Sonia Popolo, Patrick Quigley, David Reddick, Frederick Riemel, Raymond Rocha, Jean Roger.
Philip M. Rosenwig, Richard Ross, Jessica Leigh Sachs, Raha Sally, Jesus Sanchez, Jane Louise Simpkin, Heather Lee Smith, Diane Snyder, Brian D. Sweeney, Madeline Amy Sweeney, Michael Theodoros, Amy E. Toyen, James Trentini, Mary Trentini, Antonio Jesus Montoya Valdez, Kenneth Waldy, William M. Weems, Christopher Zarba.
At this time, we will have Amazing Grace being played and sung by Vanessa Hugh. Yeah. I'm sorry. God Bless America, the Tewksbury Swinging Seniors. We're playing catch-up.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now am found, was blind, but now I see. 'Twas grace that taught my heart to fear, and grace my fears relieved. How precious did that grace appear the hour I first believed. When we've been there 10,000 years, bright shining as the sun, we've no less days to sing God's praise than when we first begun. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now am found, was blind, but now I see.
Thank you, Vanessa. At this time, we will have one of my compatriots on the board of directors, Richard Cuco, give some concluding remarks. And after that, we will deviate from the, as we have been all day, deviate from the program to do a couple of items for the people that have put this together. Thank you. Richard Cuco.
Now, it may seem like we're not organized, but Colonel Sam Polton has been with us for 17 years playing taps. When we have our program in the morning, he is in Boston, so we're going to have taps at the conclusion. Hopefully, Sam will make it here. We don't have the money for a police escort, so, you know. Before I give my remarks, I just wanted to mention that, because I know he wouldn't say it, but right at 9/11, many of the first responders from Tewksbury went to New York to work on the pile. And among that group was Captain Robert Fowler. This is an amazing story from a flight attendant on Flight 15, Jerry Brown, Delta Airlines. That was not one of the flights involved in the tragic event, but his story goes like this. On the morning of September 11th, we were about 5 hours out of Frankfurt flying over the North Atlantic. All of a sudden, the curtains parted and I was told to go to the cockpit immediately to see the captain. As soon as I got there, I noticed the crew had their all business look on their faces. The captain handed me a printed message. It was from Delta's main office in Atlanta. It simply read, "All airways over the continental United States are closed to commercial air traffic. Land as soon as possible at the nearest airport. Advise your destination." No one said a word what that could mean. We knew there was a serious situation and we needed to find a quick landing spot. The captain determined that the nearest airport was 400 miles behind us in Gander, Newfoundland. He requested approval for a route change from the Canadian air traffic controllers, and approval was granted immediately, no questions asked. We found out later, of course, why there was no hesitation in approving this request. While the flight crew prepared the airline for landing, another message arrived from Atlanta telling us about some terrorist activity in New York area. A few minutes later, word came in about the hijacking. We decided to lie to the passengers while they were still in the air. We told them the plane had a simple instrument problem and that we need to land at the nearest airport in Gander, Newfoundland to have it checked out. We promised to give more information after landing in Gander. There was much grumbling among the passengers, but that's nothing new. 40 minutes later, we landed in Gander. Local time was 12:30 p.m., 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Already, there are about 20 airplanes on the ground from all over the world that had taken the detour the same way we did. After we parked at the ramp, the captain made the following announcement. "Ladies and gentlemen, you must be wondering if all the airplanes around us have the same instrument problems we are having. The reality is that we were here for another reason." Then he went on to explain a little bit that we knew about the situation in the U.S. There were loud gasps and states of disbelief. The captain informed passengers that ground control in Gander told us to stay put. The Canadian government was in charge of our situation, and no one was allowed to get off the aircraft. No one on the ground was allowed to come near the aircraft. Only airport police would come around periodically to look over the next plane. In the next hour or so, more planes landed, and it ended up with 53 airplanes from 27 different countries landed at the airport. Meanwhile, bits of news started coming in all over the aircraft radio. For the first time, we learned that the airplanes were flown into the World Trade Center in New York and into the Pentagon. People were trying to use their cell phones, but were unable to connect due to different cell system in Canada. Some did get through, but they would only get the Canadian operator who said that the lines to the U.S. had been blocked. Sometime in the evening, news filtered to us that the World Trade Center building had collapsed and that the fourth hijacker had resulted in a crash. By now, the passengers were emotionally and physically exhausted, not to mention frightened. But everyone stayed amazingly calm. We had only to look out the window and 52 other stranded aircraft to realize that we were not alone in this predicament. We had been told earlier that they would allow people off the planes at approximately 6 p.m. Gander Airport told us to turn the deplane would be around 11 a.m. the next morning. Passengers were not happy, but they simply resigned themselves to the news without much noise and started to prepare themselves to spend the night on the airplane. Gander had promised us medical attention if needed, water and laboratory services. And they were true to their word. Fortunately, we had no medical situations to worry about. We did have a young lady who was 33 weeks pregnant, and we all had to make sure that she was comfortable. We took really, really good care of her. The night passed without incident, despite the uncomfortable sleeping arrangements. About 10:30 on the morning of the 12th, a convoy of school buses showed up, and we got off the plane and were taken to the terminal, where we went through immigration customs and had to register with the Red Cross. After that, we, the crew, were separated from the passengers and were taken in vans to a small hotel. We had no idea where the passengers were going. We learned from the Red Cross that the town of Gander had a population of about 10,400 people, and there were 10,500 passengers to take care of from all the different planes from around the world. We were told to relax at the hotel and would be contacted when U.S. airports opened again, but not to expect a call for a while. We found out the total scope of the terror back home only after getting our hotel room and turning on TV, staring at it for 24 hours. Meanwhile, we had lots of time on our hands and found the people of Gander were extremely friendly. They started calling us the plane people. We enjoyed their hospitality, exploring the town of Gander, and ended up having a pretty good time. 2 days later, we, the crew, got a call and were taken to Gander Airport. Back on the plane, we reunited with the passengers and found out that they had been doing well for the past 2 days. We found out was incredible. Gander and the surrounding communities had closed their high schools, meeting halls, lodges, and any large gathering place. They converted those facilities into mass lodging areas for the stranded travelers. Some had cots set up, some had mats, sleeping bags, and pillows. All the high school students were required to volunteer their time to take care of the guests. Our 218 passengers ended up in a town called Lewisport, about 45 kilometers from Gander, where they were put up at the high school. If any woman wanted to be in a woman-only facility, that was arranged. Families were kept together. All the elderly passengers were taken to private homes. Remember the young lady? She was put up in a private home right across from a 24-hour urgent care facility. And there was a dentist on call for taking care of anything, and nurses to take care of anyone who had a situation. Phone calls and emails to the U.S. around the world were available to everyone once a day. During the day, passengers were offered excursion trips. Some people went on boat cruises and lake and harbor tours. Some went on hikes at the local forests. Local bakeries stayed open and made fresh bread for their guests. Food was prepared by all the residents and brought to the schools. People were driven to restaurants of their choices and offered wonderful meals. Everyone was given tokens of the local for the local laundromat so that they could wash their clothes as their luggage was still on the aircraft. In other words, every single need was met for those stranded travelers. Passengers were crying when telling us their stories. Finally, when they were told the U.S. airports had opened, they were delivered to the airport right on time and without a single passenger missing or late. The local Red Cross had information about the whereabouts of each and every passenger and knew which plane they needed to be on and when the planes were leaving. They coordinated everything beautifully. It was absolutely incredible. When the passengers came on board, it was like they had been on a cruise. Everyone knew each other's name. They were swapping stories of and expressing their other gratitude about how much of a great time they had. Our flight back to Atlanta looked like a chartered party flight. The crew just stayed out of the way. It was mind-boggling. Passengers were totally bonded and were calling each other by their first name, exchanging phone numbers, addresses, and emails. This was a very unusual happening. One of our passengers approached the flight attendant and asked if he could make an announcement over the PA system. We never ever allowed that, but this was a different time. And I said, of course, and handed him the mic. He picked up the PA and reminded everyone about what they had just gone through in the last few days. He reminded them of the hospitality that they had received at the hands of total strangers. He continued by saying that he would like to do something in return for the good folks of Lewisport. He said he was going to set up a trust fund under the name of Delta 15, that was our flight number. The purpose of the trust fund is to provide college scholarships for high school students in Lewisport. He asked for donations in any amount from his fellow travelers. When the paper and donations got back to us with the amount and the names and phone numbers he addressed, the total was more than $14,000. The gentleman, an MD from Virginia, promised to match the donations and would start administrative work on scholarships. He also said he would forward the proposal to Delta Corporate and ask for a donation as well. As of this writing, the account, the trust fund, is at more than $1.5 million and assisted 134 students in their college education. I just wanted to share this story because we need good stories right now. It gives me hope to know that some people in a faraway place were kind to strangers who literally dropped in on them from out of the sky. It reminds me of how much good there is in the world. In spite of all the rotten things we see on today's world, this story confirms that there's a lot of good in people in the world. When things are bad, they come forward. Thank you.
I'm going to put in for a bigger podium. Before we hear from the Tewksbury Swinging Seniors with their rendition of This Is My Country and Let There Be Peace on Earth, and finally TAPS, I'd like to just take a moment to thank a few people. Our fire and police chiefs, their officers, men and women, the library staff, especially Joe Fumora, who was endlessly working with us for the last 4 days. Our IT staff that is here today, they have been here before and putting this program together, so we'll have it for a history lesson. Probably how to be a moderator. And never last, our school administrator staff for putting our program together that you have in front of you, that I've dissected. And lastly, thank you to our 9/11 directors. And I'd like you to stand. Some of you are. For all that you do. Jim Carter, Richard Cuco, Mark Kratman, Ann Duncan, and I can't forget my wife, June. Thank you all. Without you, we wouldn't have this day of remembrance. I'll close with always remember and never forget. God bless you all, and God bless America. not for the service, if not for the servicemen and women protecting our country, which brings me to the point of it never ends. Those people protecting our country were also protecting the evacuees leaving Afghanistan. 2 weeks ago, some of them died. We should not forget them. It seems like it will never end. Thank you very much.
Please stand.
Detail. Order. Arms.
Thank you very much. That concludes our ceremony here this evening, today. Usually we meet here at night today. And I want to thank you all for coming. I want to thank all the people that contributed their time, energy, and good rapport. Gentlemen and ladies, you are dismissed. Thank you.